Hi, good Bat Neighbor community. Jen here, and we've got a very special Friday feature for you today. It's our monthly Friday feature special where we're joined from folks around the world who are helping bats. And joining us today, a little south of Sydney on the southeast coast of Australia, we have Janine Davies, a bat rehabilitator who has her own advocacy site, Bats, Bomaderry, and Beyond that you can check out. Hi, Janine.
Hi, Jen.
So, what do you do to be a good neighbor to bats?
Well, I've been involved with bats since 2013 and joined a local wildlife group. I had no intention of actually caring. I was going to help out with rescues and cutting fruit and all that. Within, I think, 2 months, I had my first baby,
Oh,
and
wow.
then it was basically hook, line, and sinker. And I've always had a passion for them ever since I was little and saw them at a zoo. When I moved down to the South Coast back in 2007, I used to have them frequent the trees in my backyard.
Oh, nice.
So I'd sit out there and I'd have, a dozen in the large trees
Oh, wow.
just of an evening in summer. And so then back in 2013, when there was a call out because there was a mass heat stress event locally,
Oh,
that's when I joined up to help.
okay. Okay.
So I've just basically done that. And because they're a threatened species that's vulnerable to extinction and a keystone species, I felt that I'd be better off helping to do whatever I could for this species and other bat species. Because prior to that, I did marine mammal rescue. So
Oh, okay.
I found that this was a bit more, it allowed me to achieve more, I felt,
Okay.
that I would be able to help with rescuing and rehabilitating. So for many years, I helped out at the local rehab centre, and then I started it up back in 2016 here from my own house.
Oh, okay.
So I've got facilities. I can take in intensive care.
Oh,
I
wow.
have a cat Max that's set up in one of my rooms. There used to be an art room, but
Oh,
we don't do that anymore. And so at this point in time, I've got 9 babies that range from, say, 8 to 14 weeks inside.
wow.
And I have 13 adults, 3 of which have babies in my flight aviary in my backyard.
Oh, my.
So I'm very lucky in that where I'm situated, 2 hours south of Sydney, it's in the Shoalhaven, and my property is just over 1/3 of an acre. So it's
Oh,
not
wow.
huge, but I back onto bush.
Okay.
So not far from my back fence is the cliffs that go down to the Bomaderry Creek.
Oh,
So
wow.
the actual colony itself is located only 500 meters from my house. I can drive there in less than 2 minutes.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. That's really
Yes.
fortunate.
So it only moved there in 2016. Prior
Oh,
to that, it was behind where I am, but once again, only 500 meters away, but across the creek. But it
wow.
moved for whatever reasons
Huh.
it chose. And it's now in an area that is right on the highway. And but it's easy access for me to pop in when I'm on my way into town or going to work or whatever.
Wow.
So it's, yeah. So I
Wow.
hope that answered the question.
So definitely you've answered a few questions. So I know why you want to help bats. But I guess one of the other things that you do to help bats is bat banding. Is
That's
that's
right.
something? Can you tell us about
Yes.
that? I'm not familiar with it.
Right. Here in Australia, there's a number of programs, and I'm registered under Dr. Karen Perry Jones. So what it is, we're licensed to actually band. And if you look at the flying fox on the screen, you can actually see the silver bands on their
Oh, yeah.
fronts. Okay.
Yeah, I see
So
just above your right shoulder there for people that are
that's
watching.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
So that's the actual band itself. So they're all numbered, and we detail all the facts about them, when they came in, what they came in for. So what that means is that when they are found, there's a contact address, believe it or not, on the bands.
Oh, wow.
People either ring them or send in the bands to the ABBBS, and we're then notified if it was one of our animals that's been located. In some instances, they're deceased, unfortunately, but there have been quite a few where they've been found like 600, 700, 800 kilometers away.
Oh, wow.
And still alive.
Nice.
I remember one up in Dorrigo. I think both of them were fruit tree. They got into fruit tree netting, but they were able to be rehabbed again and once again released. So it's a manner in which we're able to take notes if they come in again. And I've been lucky in that I have them visit my aviary, and occasionally I'm able to get there and check a band and know that flying fox is one that I've released. And in some cases, there've been babies that I've released and they come back. So that makes me feel good knowing that they're still alive 2 or 3 years later. A lot of people also microchip them, but I fear the problem with that is if members of the public see an animal and there's a band on it, they'll investigate.
Right.
Whereas if there's no visible signs, they're more than likely just to bin it. And therefore there's no data, we don't know. So there have been injuries because of bands. They've injured their thumbs.
Oh.
But it's one of those things that's catch-22.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the fruit netting. That's actually another question I have is how can people help bats so that they don't have to get rehabbed in the first place?
Well, here in Australia, luckily, Victoria and the ACT have both banned the large aperture netting. So,
oh, wow, really?
Yes, we're just waiting for the other states to get on board, but that could take a bit of time. Basically, anything larger than 5 millimeters, it's probably a quarter of an inch, perhaps. I can't convert back to the.
I was gonna say I'm not good at conversions, but we can do the math here after the fact.
At 5 millimeters. So basically, any net that you can poke your finger through, will injure or kill other animals, particularly our flying foxes, because what people don't realize is if they land on a tree and they get something stuck in it, they then tend to try and get out, so they roll. Then they end up with constriction injuries. Now those constriction injuries can sometimes take over 3 weeks to become evident, and then all of a sudden the wing will break down, or you'll it'll become necrotic, and it's just something that people need to be concerned about and wary of, because for people, seeing an animal entangled is not a nice thing a majority of the time. And they just need to learn, not only buy the appropriate netting, but read the instructions on how to construct it over the tree, because people tend to just walk up, throw it over the tree. Now, anything's going to get entangled. We also have reports of snakes and reptiles, possums, birds, anything that is going for fruit. And I just try and ask people to sit down and think. You look at regular netting that's, maybe an inch aperture. That's not saving anything. If that's against the fruit, the animals are still going to bite the fruit. So if you really want to protect your fruit, use a netting that's going to actually save it, but not only save the fruit, save the chance of an animal. So construct it properly, make sure that it's taut and that it's tight around the base of the tree.
Okay. And I've heard that that barbed wire is a problem for flying foxes too. Is that something that people can do differently?
Preferably not put barbed wire on the top two rungs. That would be a good idea. But if they do, some people can put like poly pipe. They can cut it and place that along the top rung. Okay. And there's metal discs that you can actually attach so that the actual flying foxes can see where the actual fence is. Because what you tend to find is that, unfortunately, and this goes back to a lack of education, people plant fruiting trees near barbed wire fences. So if an animal's in the tree to eat, and as we all know, flying foxes don't fly upwards, they drop and then they have to go up. They don't see the actual fence and then they get entangled. Once they're on that, they're then frantically trying to free themselves. They end up some of the entanglements, it's hard to believe just how bad they are entangled. And because they also will dip in local dams, once again, you've got fences at the end where the dam is. So if people just need to really learn, and I keep saying to everybody, the problem is that we've never, ever been educated about our own native species.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
We need to be taught. I mean, most people that I speak to, they've got no idea that our flying foxes are pollinators.
Oh, wow.
You know, people just don't know until you actually become involved.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're actually doing. I mean, people just refer to them constantly as flying rats, disease-ridden creatures, that they're dirty, they'll suck your blood, just your normal.
Yeah, we certainly get that here too.
and it's just trying to encourage people to actually learn about the species and why they're so important for everybody.
Yeah. There was actually something you said that I wanted to mention. You commented on one of our Good Bat Neighbor posts that the more people reached, the more we can educate. And I think that is so important. That's, one of our philosophies at Good Bat Neighbor, why we started the community, because it is so important that people want to do the right thing. Often it's just that they don't know the right thing or the wrong thing to do. And like you said, if people are just educated, hopefully that's something in our community can take away from this today, is educate anyone you encounter. If you hear any misinformation about bats, make sure you pipe up and let people know what the truth is and how they can help. A lot of times even just a simple change can make a big difference.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, that's fine. I think that's it. We've got to just keep pushing that. And like I say to other people, even if we just convince one person at a time, hopefully that person will go on to educate another and another, and it will just keep going. Exactly. And it's, I think that's what I felt when I got involved, because I didn't really know much about bats because I'd focused on marine mammals for so long.
Right.
And it was just like, I had no idea, it wasn't something that you were ever taught. And it really should start with the youngsters. Yeah. And then maybe the adults may actually learn and listen, and we just have to jump on this education platform and try and hone in on their importance. And they're doing us a favor. We're not doing them a favor. I mean, we're just, destroying their habitat left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And their habitat just happens to be in the areas that we all want to live.
Yeah.
And, when we had our fires 4 years ago on the south coast from where I am further south, we lost 60% of the mid-story and 41% of the canopy.
Wow.
Now that the fires just have ruined and taken out so much of the forests that things have changed, and the animals are now appearing further out west, which they haven't in the past, and which is of a concern as well, because then they need to come back to find food again. And a friend of mine was up in Cowra recently, and their numbers skyrocketed out to over 30,000 in a very small area.
Oh my.
Unfortunately, a golf course, which really isn't the best place for them to be. And we've had problems over the years because more have been headed out that way. And the numbers, we used to have many, many more in areas along here, but those numbers seem to be waning as well. Now they have started going further south because there's a lot now in Victoria, but they also then started to move around to South Australia as well. So we've destroyed their habitat. They're moving into areas that really are probably not correct for them. And that's why we see an influx of them going into people's yards or going into orchards.
Right.
And we need to do something. More people need to start planting native trees as well. We need to try and actually help them once again, and just try and educate as we go along, and one step at a time.
Yeah, gosh. And you mentioned the fires, and I know now you're having another emergency situation out there. Could you tell us a little bit about that crisis?
So it started off with lots of animals coming in Queensland. This year we've got a starvation event. Once again, that means that there's not enough food. So what they normally do in the season, they start in Queensland and then they move following the flowering. Well, there hasn't been much flowering. So we've been getting a lot coming down. We don't know whether they could also be the ones from out west, like Cowra and so forth. And they're coming in, and this year a lot of us have babies that are very compromised, and they're just not at the weights that they really should be. So perhaps the mums haven't passed on enough nutrients when they were pregnant, and then that's why we've got so many babies. And that's when, once again, they're starving, so they're going to start hitting backyard fruit trees, orchards, and so forth. And then what happened, back in early December, we had a really hot day. I think it was over 40, between 43 and 46. And the Campbelltown colony went down. Between 250 and 300 babies perished. We were able to rescue in excess of 50, but they were all underweight for age. So normally with a heat stress event, it takes a few days of over the 42-degree mark before they succumb to the heat. But in their weakened state due to starvation, a lot more were coming down because they were already so compromised. So I'm not sure of the total number that didn't make it, but a lot were saved. So it's another thing that we're fearful of, because we're only basically a month into summer.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So if we have more heat stress events, I truly don't know what's going to happen, because we're all at capacity already.
Wow.
We don't have enough carers. And it gets to the stage where some groups say, well, we don't have the carers, so therefore we're going to have to euthanize.
Jeez.
Which we haven't got to that yet. We're all maxed out. I mean, having so many babies is not good for them, right? It's not good for us because we don't sleep, but it really isn't that good for them. So what we're trying to do is, you need to give them one-on-one, because when they're mum, they're wonderful mothers and they give so much to their babies. So we need to try and mother them as well. So the more you have, the more likely, you're not going to be able to pass that on to them. So we've all been trying as hard as we can. Luckily, most will be in creche in the next few weeks, and therefore, if there's a round 2 with more heat stress events, well, we'll be ready to get back on top of that. But the problem,
I'm sorry, could you explain to people what being in creche means for people that don't know the stages that the pups would be at?
So what happens is the babes stay with their carer, usually up until around 10 to 12 weeks. Depends on if they start to fly, because at that age, a lot of people have them on airers for their development. Some of us are lucky enough, we've got cat maxes, so that's at 1.8 by 1.8 by 1.8 cube, so that they've got room to move, so they can actually fly. Then usually at 12 weeks, that is when they're weaned. So up until that time, we've been feeding them bottles. And then around usually 10 weeks, they've gone from 4 feeds down to 3, and then they drop down to 2 and then down to 1, because you've started implementing apples, pears, rock melons, etc. into their diet. So then they have to be put into a creche, which basically means that they need to be put together with a creche parent and rehabbed back to being a flying fox, as opposed to being mothered. At that stage, the carers need to make sure that, you cease trying to mother them. They've got to learn now that they're a flying fox, and they've got to change. So you're actually able to watch them basically turn into feral little flying foxes, which brings so much joy. It's like, you're a little sook a couple of weeks ago, but now you don't want anything, and you run away, and you're flying. So then they spend about 4 weeks in the creche aviary, and then they'll go into a larger flight aviary, so that they can then learn to use their muscles and do what they need to do, which is fly. Then they're transported to a facility. Because of the fires and so forth, I wouldn't be releasing anything on the South Coast. Because adults, we still have adults coming into the area. They're obviously feeding, but they may be flying 50, 60 kilometres a night. Expect an orphan that's just been put out there to travel those distances. So we have them sent further north. So they go into a facility, and there's a creche up there, proper creche up there, and then they've got the large flight aviary. So they're able to adapt into the area, and then they're released from that facility. So,
Nice.
and there are animals, wild animals that visit the facility of a night time. So,
Oh.
we know that they're going back into an area where there are flying foxes.
Nice, nice. So with all the emergencies you're having out there, it sounds like you guys have your hands very full. How can people help you guys?
First and foremost is to probably join the page and learn about our species and educate as much as possible. And we're always after fruit, so gift cards, or there could be other things that we need. But at this point in time, the main thing that we're spending our money on is fruit. For example, an adult flying fox can eat up to 450 grams of fruit a night. So there's what I think there's 2.2 pounds to the kilo.
It's a lot.
So yeah, it's a lot. So, and because we've had such horrid weather, the cost of fruit has literally exploded. So with so many animals in care, that's the biggest expenditure by far at the moment. We also add onto the fruit a high protein supplement. So they have to have that onto their fruit as well. But I mean, we go through things like, washing powder and other things, but I find they're just incidentals. But the biggest cost by far is the fruit.
Okay. And everybody out there, please hear that. A lot of these rehabbers are basically self-funded, so they can use all the help you can give them. If you're in Australia on the East Coast, look for the rehabbers near you and donate some fruit. If you're outside of Australia, you can still send donations, and I'll have those links in the post so you know where to go and how to help. And Janine, I have one last question for you. What's your favorite bat? It could be a bat species or a bat from a book or a movie. Just any bat out there that's your favorite bat.
Whichever one I have in my hands at any particular time.
Nice. I'm sure you get very attached to them. I know those flying foxes are so sweet.
Yeah.
Anybody can see from the picture behind you there.
There's wrong way. I was going to say there's another one. But I also do have a very strong fondness for our eastern tube-nose bats. We don't get them down here. They're further north. I was lucky to visit Tolgabat Hospital last year, and we encountered a number of them there, and they're the Shrek species of bat. They just look like Shrek and Fiona. But the amazing thing that I found, because you see things in books and you see pictures online and you see photographs, was the fact that when I actually saw it in person, it was so tiny. Whereas just looking at a picture of them, they look big. They look rather huge, but they're the daintiest, littlest, cutest little critters you'll ever encounter. But I primarily deal with the grey-headed flying foxes. So each one's unique, each one's different, and they've all got little personalities. And so many people refer to them as sky puppies, and honestly, I think they're more like a little dog than anything else. But so basically wherever I am, what I ever I'm dealing with, that's my favorite at the time.
Nice. Well, geez, thank you so much for joining us. You've given us a lot of good information. We really enjoyed hearing from you. And like I told everybody, we'll have information in the post so you can help Janine and the other rehabbers out there in Southeast Australia. And thanks again. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity. Bye.
Oh, bye.